Hello and welcome back to Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views covering the topics we hope are relevant to you. Today, Rahul Gandhi's remarks in the US have caused a political firestorm back home in India. And if you ever needed to see how the RSS mobilises its troops to maintain its control over its fake narrative, well, this story is a textbook model that we'll analyse in detail. Also, caste discrimination shows its ugly head in Canada. And the perennial problem of sexual assault against women comes up yet again, this time in a military context. Well, joining me, as always, for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to everyone out there. Thank you for posting what city and country you're watching us from. Continue to do that. We love to know where you are. Welcome to everybody from Calgary, Scotland, the UK, California. I mean, it was just awesome to see people actually responding to that. So keep it coming. We want to know where you're watching us from.
Absolutely. And together, James and I will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And of course, as usual, we will be taking a look at lots of your great comments, and we will indeed be looking at those in more detail of where our wonderful audience are living and watching us from. So thanks very much indeed for those. But let's get on with the show. James, what are you going to start us off with this morning?
Well, as you said in the intro there, the caste system has shown its ugly head here in Canada. And essentially, a Hindu leader was upset that he had invited several of the Canadian party leaders for the Conservatives to show up at the Mandir last week. And what happened was that a few of our government representatives happened to be Sikh who showed up there. Now, instead of taking that as an opportunity to learn from each other and to teach each other, the leader sent a scathing letter over to the party leader, Pierre Poilievre. Now, this was reported by a local broadcaster and talk show host in Vancouver by the name of Gurpreet S. Sahoda. And his Facebook and Twitter feeds have just exploded with comments from both sides of the debate here. And what I'm going to do is actually read to you the actual letter that was written and sent to Pierre Poilievre and the Canadian Conservative Party. And this is, as I said, instead of taking it as an opportunity to learn from each other, and this is what was written. I'm going to read this exactly as it is. So, dear Pierre Poilievre and the CPC team, we hope your campaign is going well. On behalf of Sri Lakshmi, I'm probably going to slaughter the name, but anyway, the Hindu Cultural Society of British Columbia, a strong community of 50,000 Mandir visitors and BC residents. We would like to let you know that about our community's concerns about several important issues that directly affect Canadian Hindus. As citizens of the Canadian democratic process, we value our relationship with the Conservative Party of Canada and hope our voices will be heard and understood. First of all, we thank you for the support you and the CPC have shown towards the ongoing program of the Bangladeshi Hindu community after the fall of PM Hasina's government. We wanted to let you know about a recent visit of CPC leaders to our Mandir last weekend. Deputy Leader Tim Upal, MP from Edmonton, Jasraj Hallan, MP from Calgary, and Shadow Minister for Standing Committee on Finance, CPC nominee from Surrey, Harjot Gill, and CPC nominee Jesse Sahoda visited our temple recently on the occasion of Lord Krishna's event. We are disheartened to see a lack of cultural sensitivity in your choice of sending opposing ideological persons to Canadian Hindu places of worship. In light of recent events and ongoing discussions within our community, it would be highly beneficial for us to engage with MPs with a Hindu background or someone who understands the daily challenges that Canadian Hindus face. The growing rise in the Hinduphobia and attacks against Hindu leaders across Canada are essential issues to us and our people. We expect maturity in communication, as this is a serious matter. Your representative would uniquely understand the cultural, religious, and social nuances essential to Canadian Hindus. This perspective is crucial in addressing our community's challenges, ranging from human rights issues to justice and inclusion. And I'll come back to that point. We request that you send Majumdar MP, Calgary Heritage, or Deputy Leader Melissa Lanceman, Thornhill MP. In the past, they have shown have shown signs of willingness to hear and understand the issues of Canadian Hindus. This would significantly enhance the effectiveness of our dialogue to ensure our concerns are communicated and addressed empathetically and informally. We believe that a meeting or forum with MP Shav Mujimdar, who shares our cultural heritage and is a victim of the genocide of the Bangladeshi Hindus, would help build more vital bridges between our community and the Conservative Party. We want to start meaningful dialogue with the Conservative Party of Canada and seek time for meetings to listen to our concerns. We are eager to work together towards a solution that aligns with the values of equity, justice, and representation that we all hold dear. Thank you for your attention to this matter. We look forward to your positive response and hope to arrange a meeting as soon as possible. And this was written by the president, Satish Kumar, and that was of the Hindu Cultural Society of British Columbia. Now, to me, this is quite insulting to the people who did attend, regardless as to whether they were Sikh or they were Christian or Muslim or anything else. They are representatives of the Canadian government. They are representing all of us, not just the Hindus, not just the Sikhs, not just the Muslims, the Christians, the Buddhists. They are representing everyone in the community. And to get a slap in the face that I think that is, I find very insulting. I think that they could have used that as a learning opportunity for both sides. I think that this is a point that, as I said, I wanted to come back to one of the highlighted points here that they say this perspective is crucial in addressing our community's challenges, ranging from human rights issues to injustice and inclusion. And really, that word inclusion stood out to me because they are excluding these ministers and these people who will be running in the next election to represent the communities across our great nation. And here they are trying to exclude. So I really found it, really rude and disingenuous to do that. I do understand the concern that, of course, all different ethnic communities, religious communities, special interest groups, everybody has different points of view and different concerns that impact their group of people. And that I don't discourage for you to want to speak out about. I do not take that away from any group that, yes, you do have unique issues, but when you take the opportunity to meet with people in different levels of government or different backgrounds, you're able to educate and learn from each other. And that, I think, is what makes Canada an amazing country, just like the US and the UK and other places where it's very multicultural. And that is that we can come together, learn, and represent each other's interests at that certain professional level without it being about caste and about race or religion. So that is really what stood out. And I just thought I'd bring up a couple of the comments because there were so many. I could have gone on for hours, but I just wanted to bring up a few of them. And Pacific Way Sim 1 said, truly disheartened to come across this today. Whatever happened to secularism? Okay, so that is a very good point. Sandhu Sarge, I'm going to go down to hit his first one. Oh, do you know what? I don't think I have his one of two, so we'll just go with two. You don't have to be Sikh, Christian, Muslim, or from any religious background to lead in Canada. We are a nation built on unity, respect, and inclusion, not narrow-mindedness. Respect Canada values or step aside. Sandhu Sarge, in Canada, we stand for diversity, not oh, sorry, that is two. Okay, so in Canada, we stand for diversity, not religious segregation. No one needs to belong to any specific faith to represent our country. It's time we stop playing divisive games in place of worship or politics. And I totally agree with that. And finally, Yilts TV said caste discrimination. This is how Hindus divided Punjab too in 1947. They think only Hindus can represent Hindus. And I don't think all Hindus have that same sentiment or that same feeling. I think that this was a plain and clear sign that some people do still look at it as a caste system, which has no place in Canadian society or Canadian politics. So I thought that was an important issue that we look at, because it just shows that there is still a working of the caste system in Canada, and trying to be pushed in all areas of society. I think you probably see
Yeah.
similar issues there in the UK, Angus.
Yeah, wow. There's it's quite a complex story. There's obviously many angles to this. I think you've covered most of the relevant points. The caste system in itself. Let's just first of all deal with the caste system. Clearly, the caste system is just so fundamental in the whole infrastructure of India, despite the fact that it is allegedly outlawed now. But it is still very much in place. It is still in rude health, should we say. And unfortunately, we are seeing the caste system extending out into the diaspora. We've reported regularly on evidence of it showing up in the United States and clearly here in Canada as well. It's infiltrated corporate life in the United States, where again, even some of the tech giants like Google and Facebook have had issues of caste discrimination within their ranks, where lower caste employees have been discriminated against purely by being lower caste. So that's one element. But I think, the one thing that struck me about this whole story is, and I think you hit the nail on the head here, there is this almost sense of entitlement and a deep set arrogance. And basically just boils down to simple plain rudeness. So the Conservative Party sent along a few MPs, which in itself is actually quite a privilege to have members of Parliament attend any event. Whether you're an ethnic minority or whether you're from the indigenous population setting up a tea party, it doesn't matter. If an MP attends one of your events, these people are extremely busy. They have a full agenda. They are full-time employees representing their constituency. So if they attend one of your events, it is actually a privilege, believe it or not. Now, the fact that, as you rightly point out here, James, they sent the wrong MPs, oh good heavens, we're terribly sorry. The fact that we sent several MPs, they just happened to be the wrong ones, and we didn't send the ones that you particularly demand, well, we're sorry about that. So I think that there's that whole element of I think, just simple plain rudeness. And I'm not going to put that down to cultural insensitivity. It's just plain simple rudeness, nothing more than that. But it does actually, and I think for me, this hints at another underlying issue, and that is, I think there is a bit of a disjoint between, and this isn't just with the Hindu community, it does occur actually in many walks of life. There's always a disjoint between the leadership and the actual people on the ground. And I suspect there is somewhat of a disjoint between ordinary Hindus in Canada and the leadership who control, the temples and the social organisations. And of course, the leaderships are going to be closer to India. And in turn, they are, of course, going to be, by extension, closer to the RSS. And of course, the RSS, as we know, is very powerful, it is very influential, and it pushes its agenda very aggressively, not just in India, but across the diaspora. And there have been all sorts of signals across Canada and the US, particularly in Canada recently, where there's been all sorts of legislation trying to be pushed through by Hindu representatives that is very clearly driven by the RSS in India. And I think this whole story is just another subtle indication, another subtle signal that the RSS are getting involved in things like this, because the RSS clearly are influencing the leadership of the temples involved. And of course, we're all about secularism. As you rightly said, James, MPs represent everybody in their constituency, regardless of their religion, their background, everything. It doesn't matter, even their political affiliation. Their responsibility is to represent every single person in their constituency, whether they voted for them or not. And I think I sense here there's a moving away from this whole secular idea that is actually ironically a fundamental concept of the Indian constitution, which is supposed to be secular, and yet we are seeing in India this move towards Hinduism and obviously a favoritism towards Hindus at the expense of religious minorities. That secularism disappearing away. In fact, they're moving away from secularism in India, as we report on regularly with the BJP, and now of course it's clearly happening, extending out into the diaspora, where this move away from secularism, it's Hindus demanding their rights. Now, I'll caveat that slightly by saying, of course, they are a minority in Canada, and like every minority in Canada, including the Sikhs, yeah, of course, they should be represented and they should be treated sensitively. But I think this goes beyond that line. I think there is this arrogance, this RSS leadership, Hindu leadership arrogance, which is spilling out here. And I wonder if ordinary Hindus are slightly embarrassed about this. I don't know, I can't speak for them, but I wonder, again, and I pointed to this disjoint between the ordinary Hindus, who I sense might be a little bit embarrassed by what's going on here, but the leadership have stuck their heads out and been quite, I would say, rude, James. I think you're right on that one.
Absolutely. And there were some comments on there by Hindus themselves stating that that letter does not represent the feelings of the entire community. So they were quick to make sure that it was understood that's not a representation of the entire Hindu community. And I think that's important because so many people of different faiths and different backgrounds and cultures make up what is Canada. And that's, a stronger nation together than we are divided. So. All right, so let's move on to the next story, Angus. Once again, we're seeing the sexual and general violence happening in India. This time, shockingly, it involves a couple of soldiers who are in training, and they're in training at the Army War College in Madhya Pradesh, and it's called MAU. They were out on a picnic. And now I don't know if the time is correct in the story because apparently it was 3 a.m., but they could have been on a night shift, maybe on a night shift and taking a break to spend some time with their significant others. They went for a picnic and they were surrounded by 6 individuals carrying weapons ranging from a handgun to sticks and other weapons. They robbed them, took their personal items, their jewelry and such. And then two of the individuals, one male, one female, were released in order to go and obtain more money. So they wanted them to go get the money and come back. And at that time, they would release the other two that they were keeping captive. Yeah, these two individuals that went to get money were able to get a cell phone signal at one point and called in for help. The police dispatched a large number of police officers who took about 10 minutes to get to the scene. And when the police were en route and the attackers or assailants saw the police cars arriving or getting close, they fled from the scene. Two of them were taken into custody, and the other four are being hunted down by police as they're still on the run. The police have dedicated 10 teams, so I would assume that would be teams of two, but it could be more. Officers out to seek and find and arrest the individuals, the other four that are still at large. With that, during the time that the two went to get money, the group actually sexually assaulted and gang raped the young lady that was with the other officer that was being held captive. He was unable to do anything as he was held and detained by several individuals as they all took turns with the girl in front of him. Just a horrific, horrific story. And it shows that women are not safe even in the presence of males who happen to be, army training or in the army getting trained as future officers. I mean, this is just abhorrent. When the police arrived, they did take the group to hospital for several injuries throughout their bodies. They were hit and attacked, but also to confirm that the woman was gang raped by the group, and that was confirmed by medical examiners. And the scars are not just physical, but the emotional that these individuals, all four of them, are going to be going through for a lifetime just is unspeakable in the level of violence. And again, this is a country where over 90 sexual assaults are reported on a daily basis, and that's only reported. It's obvious that there are many, many more because a lot of women still do not feel confident in their ability to report sexual assaults or their rapists. If you take in and add to that the marital rapes, I mean, the numbers are just astronomical. And historically, women are not taken seriously in India when they do report. There was an issue several months ago where a young lady whose mother had reported the daughter's rape. They did not take it seriously. They made her feel like she was the one that was in the wrong. she actually climbed up the local water tower and threatened to jump, causing a big ruckus and gathering. But it was her way of trying to get her voice heard. And she was the victim, not the guilty party. And they didn't see it that way. But she was able to show a very brave side of herself to actually go public and take those amazing steps to have her voice heard, which most people are too ashamed of themselves, even though they are not in the wrong. They are the victims. They feel like they've done something wrong internally. So it's just another sign that the government and law enforcement there really need to take steps to handle this and to cut down on this belief and the mentality that women are objects, not people. That's got to stop, and women have got to be protected, and men for that fact as well, from the violence. It's something that we talk about quite often, Angus, and here we see another horrific event happening there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm shaking my head because here we are again, same old, same old. It's just so painful to have to report yet another. I mean, of course, this is just one story that is recorded daily, as you said, 90 sexual assaults a day in India. And as I've said many times in the past, there is a serious cultural problem ingrained in Indian society. And the one phrase that shouts out from this story is gang rape. Now, we have, in the West, we do obviously have crimes. Crimes are an unfortunate part of our society. Rapes occur, unfortunately, all too regularly in the West. But, they unfortunately are actually extraordinarily rare, but they do occur. But what is almost unheard of in the West is this phrase gang rape. Now, gang rape, as opposed to rape, there's a big significant nuance in the difference of those phrases. A gang rape is obviously not just in scale a much more horrific crime, but it implies an awful lot more. It implies that it's a group of men who are getting together and laughing about this whole thing, and it implies again a cultural thing in their collective minds. This isn't just one bad man who's obviously mentally deranged or whatever causes the crime. This is a group of men, so it's not just one person, it's a group of men, which again by extension implies it is a cultural difference. It's a background, it's their whole mindsets, it's how they've been brought up. That's the problem, that they think it is okay to attack a woman. And again, this implies that in Indian society, generally speaking, women are seen as inferior. Therefore, young men can get together as a group, and when they're all, laughing and joking together, they think it's okay to gang rape a woman. That's the difference. And unfortunately, the only way you can ever tackle that is you've got to change a whole generation of Indian men. You've got to get into their heads. It is not okay to see women as inferior. They are not second-class citizens. They are equal and they deserve respect, etc., etc. But that's the problem here. And unfortunately, it's not just law enforcement. Law enforcement isn't going to change this. It's the actual what's in the heads of Indian men and young Indian men. They need to be, and again, I've repeated this several times every time we cover this story, the only way this is ever going to stop is that there has to be a massive shift that has to be driven by the government. And once again, this is a failure of Indian governance. It has to be driven by the Indian government to tackle the education of Indian men from the day they are born and beyond, through school, through university, through the workplace, that women must not be treated as second-class citizens. Women must be treated as equal. And that basic fundamental fact at least will start the shift towards respecting women and reducing this dreadful crime of gang rape. And I always refer back to Sikhi. One of the fundamental tenets of Sikhi from the very day or the very era that Sikhism was created, women have always been seen as equals on every level. That is a fundamental difference between Sikhi and the rest of India. And that is such an important difference. And unfortunately, the rest of India is going to have to try, and it's going to take a generation to shift, but they are going to have to somehow, if we're to stop reporting these dreadful crimes on such a regular basis, The government is going to have to tackle this from every possible angle. As I said, whether it's through schools, it's through the workplace, it's through, obviously backed up by legislation and law enforcement, but it's got to come from every part of society. And that's the only way you will change the mind shift. And I've used examples in the past of here in the UK, for example, we've almost driven smoking out of society, but it's taken a generation to do it, but through that very same method. We've also almost driven drink driving out of society, again, through that same method. It takes years, but it can be done. But it can only be done if there is a will. And at the moment, I see no will in India from the government to stop this dreadful treatment of women, James. Is it ever going to end?
Absolutely, yeah. And just for the viewers there, when you saw me smile during that report, it wasn't anything to do with the story. It was just Angus is having a new studio constructed there. You can hear the work tools, and it was just the saw going off in the middle of the recording. So just bear with us. Angus is getting some new digs there, and so if you do hear a bit of construction in the background, forgive us, but it will definitely translate into hopefully a nice picture when he gets into the new space. So there you go. I just wanted to point that out, Angus.
Indeed, absolutely, James. Thanks for pointing that out. And of course, apologies to our audience for any background noise that there may be. But it hopefully will be worth it when the new studio is unfolded over the next, hopefully the next month or two. So we will, you will be the first to see it in our audience. Okay, James, thank you for that story. Let's move on to my first story. And wow, Rahul Gandhi has really set the cat among the pigeons, as the phrase goes. His remarks just a few days ago in Washington, D.C., where he was very unambiguous and made some very robust, powerful statements about what's going on in India. And of course, what he said is certainly not unfamiliar to everything that we've talked about. But he did say very clearly that the ethnic minorities, or sorry, the religious minorities in India are seen as inferior by the RSS, the BJP government, and the Hindus supporting them. And unsurprisingly, and almost predictably, this has created a massive backlash from India, and of course particularly from the RSS. And this backlash, and I'm going to just run through a few examples of this backlash just to demonstrate. As I said, it's almost like a textbook model of how the RSS operates to ensure that their narrative and their narrative only dominates. That anybody who dares stand up, criticise or point out or hold the RSS/BJP accountable, then they will be destroyed. They will be publicly undermined. Their credibility will be undermined. And this huge renter mob will be mobilised to turn on anybody who dares speak up against the BJP or the RSS, particularly pointing out their well-known agenda that we point to regularly. So my first example of this is, of course, the Hindustan Times, that well-known independent Indian outlet of news. I say that, of course, sarcastically. The Hindustan Times, and again, this is an excellent example of I would say, a textbook model of how the Indian government operates. And of course, the Hindustan Times is just a mouthpiece of the Indian government. And the way this whole article is phrased, the phraseology, the way that every phrase is framed, creates this fake narrative, this nonsense narrative that is generated by the BJP. And it says, Rahul Gandhi's statement on Sikhs in India sparked a political row, with many BJP leaders accusing him of defaming and dividing the country in the US. So while NDA leaders, the NDA of course being the National Democratic Alliance, that's the BJP-led coalition, so the NDA leaders slammed Rahul Gandhi's words. His remarks were endorsed by Khalistani separatist leader Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, a designated terrorist in India. Oh yes, of course, that well-known terrorist. Of course, they're trotting out this tired old accusation of terrorism, despite the fact that Gurpatwant Singh Pannu is not a terrorist and has been found not guilty in any court of law as being a terrorist. No evidence has been presented of his being a terrorist. But here we go, that the official narrative of the Indian government once again is labelling him, just as an aside, the terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu. So once again, the narrative is laid out. Now, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu came out in support of the Congress leader's remarks. Of course he would, because they're true. Raoul's statement, this is what Gurpatwant says, Raoul's statements on existential threat to Sikhs in India is not only bold and pioneering, absolutely it is, but it is also firmly grounded in the factual history of what Sikhs have been facing under successive regimes in India since partition, and also corroborates SFJ's stance, that's Sikhs for Justice, stance on the justification for Punjab independence referendum to establish a Sikh homeland, Khalistan. Now, of course, Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon is the co-founder of the SFJ, and he, as I've said earlier, has been declared a terrorist in India by the Ministry of Home Affairs on the grounds of sedition and secessionism. Well, yet we're still waiting for any charges or any trial or any court to actually find him guilty of such crimes. But anyway. Now, Rahul Gandhi accused the RSS of considering some religions and communities as inferior to others. He said the fight in India is not over politics, but it's over the right to practice one's religion freely and absolutely. And this is, of course, amazingly, and as I said yesterday, Rahul Gandhi has to claim an awful lot of credit for the courage to stand up in the US and tell the world, he's telling the world this, there is a serious problem in BJP's India. So well done to Rahul Gandhi. And Rahul Gandhi also slammed the BJP, and there's actually a whole element I didn't report on yesterday, which is quite interesting. And this is actually a story in itself, but I don't want to go down this route just yet. Rahul Gandhi also slammed the BJP-led government and Modi over the border standoff between India and China, saying the PM has not handled it well. We've got Chinese troops occupying the land the size of Delhi in Ladakh. And I think that's a disaster. The media doesn't like to write about it. Of course it doesn't. We know why the media doesn't like to write about it, because it's in a bit of an embarrassment for the BJP, and the Indian media are pro-BJP. How would America react if a neighbour occupied 4,000 square kilometres of its territory? Would any president be able to get away with saying he's handled that well? Well said, Rahul. So I don't think Mr. Modi has handled China well at all. I see no reason why Chinese troops should be sitting in our territory. Yeah, now, unfortunately for Mr. Modi, China has very subtly but very effectively encroached on India's land. In Ladakh, and it's also happening over on the other side of India in Manipur. And what's Modi doing about it? Well, he's failing. He's failing as India's leader. But of course, that doesn't reach mainstream media, does it? So as the official leader of the opposition, Rahul Gandhi has actually stood up and said, look, Mr. Modi, you are failing our nation. But that's a whole side issue, which we won't go down today. So, of course, Mr. Gandhi has stood up. He's made these incredible statements. He's been supported by Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon over in the US, who said, yes, this is true. This is what's happening. And, of course, unsurprisingly, the RSS have got its pet media to now turn on both Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon, branding him a terrorist, therefore undermining his credibility as a spokesman, and, of course, undermining Rahul Gandhi, saying, how dare you be over there and attack our nation? No, he's not attacking your nation. He's attacking your government. And that's the key distinction. But they don't like that. So they're reframing this whole narrative, saying that Rahul Gandhi is anti-Indian. How often have we heard that? Anybody who criticised the BJP is anti-Indian, not anti-BJP, apparently. So, of course, the RSS, like many political organisations, have a rent-a-mob to hand. And they've got their rent-a-mob out in the streets to protest. Yes, we see this quite often here in the West, particularly in the UK, where the left wing, the extreme left, have rent-a-mobs on a phone call away. They just ring up and say, right, we need you to go form a protest. And they all suddenly appear with official banners that have obviously clearly been officially printed, pre-printed. These aren't sort of off-the-cuff protests. They are pre-prepared, ready to roll off the shelf. They are a rent-a-mob, basically. So the RSS have done this. And Sikh leaders from Delhi's BJP's Sikh cell, and this is an interesting dynamic here. So the BJP's own Sikh cell staged this protest against Congress leader Rahul Gandhi over those remarks. The protest occurred near Rahul's residence, with participants demanding an apology. Now here he is again. BJP leader RP Singh criticised Gandhi for defaming India and humiliating Sikhs, urging him to take responsibility. Now, once again, this character, RP Singh, rears his head. And I've asked our audience, please let me know your thoughts on RP Singh. Nobody's commented yet, and I am interested about this guy. Because, of course, and this is an interesting dynamic here, because the BJP have Sikh members. I, as an observer, find this astounding, bearing in mind everything that is publicly known about the BJP and their links to the RSS, and everything that the RSS stands for, its Hindu Rashtra, etc. I don't need to inform our audience about that. Our audience are well informed about what's going on there. So why are there so many Sikhs in the BJP? I don't know. Yet here they are, all drummed up by their leaders, the RSS. Maybe that they are gullible and unwitting Sikhs who've been sucked and seduced into the BJP without realising actually just what it is they're standing for. But here they are, as a renter mob. They've been turfed out by the RSS. They've been instructed by the RSS, get out there and attack Rahul Gandhi. So like good little gullible soldiers, out they go. And a phrase that comes to mind here is many of our commenters have used the phrase fake Sikhs. And I wonder, what are your thoughts, members of our audience? Are these people fake Sikhs? Why are they out there standing up for the BJP and actually turning on other Sikhs, essentially, which I find baffling? Please explain to me, educate me. So the demonstrators gathered near Gandhi's residence and the police intervened. They stopped them before they could reach the residence. Sikh leaders, women and BJP members participated in the protest, with many being detained. RP Singh, again, now this is where it gets interesting. He was detained. He demanded this apology from Rahul, and he said Rahul Gandhi should apologise. He used foreign soil to defame India and made a statement suggesting that Sikhs are not allowed to wear their turbans or visit Gurdwaras. Well, actually, that's not what he said. And again, Singh told ANI, this is interesting, ANI are well known, and for those who should watch our podcast, particularly with Bhajan Singh Binder, who's done a huge amount of research into how this trail of misinformation is dispersed into the media. ANI is one of these major key points in this trail of how this misinformation spreads out into the mainstream media. So, of course, ANI, unsurprisingly, appears in this article again. They are behind a lot of this. So, RP Singh has said falsely, has misquoted Rahul Gandhi, saying they're not allowed to wear turbans or Gurdwaras. Yes, they are. We know they are. That's not what he said. But the trend is to try to minimise and to oppress all the minorities so that one day they will not be able to. That is where it's going, this Hindu Rashtra. That is what Rahul Gandhi was saying. It's not happening at the moment, but that is coming. It's a warning. He sent out a warning. And of course, RP Singh has completely misquoted him, and so in our eyes, it is completely undermined. His whole credibility is undermined. But it's ANI, again, broadcasting this misinformation, this fake quote. And the protesters accused Rahul of humiliating the Sikh community. No, he didn't actually, and held the Congress Party responsible for 1984 anti-Sikh riots. Now, this is where it really gets complicated for Rahul Gandhi, because of course, Gandhi represents the Congress Party, and the Congress Party, as we all know, were in power. Indira Gandhi, of course, his own blood relative, was responsible for Operation Blue Star. So, of course, Rahul Gandhi is in a very difficult position here, where, his legacy, his unfortunate legacy, is 1984 and the 1980s and 1990s in India, and the dreadful crimes of the Congress Party. Of course, that gives ample ammunition for the BJP to undermine him. So we've got this very difficult dynamic here where actual Rahul Gandhi has stood up for the Sikh community and, of course, all the other ethnic minorities in India. But unfortunately, he's very quickly undermined by the acts of his forefathers, his foremothers, which does create a real problem for Rahul Gandhi. And the BJP has since denounced these remarks, accusing Gandhi of creating a dangerous narrative. Really? I wonder who was actually behind a dangerous narrative. Is it Rahul Gandhi, or is it actually the BJP and the RSS? Open for debate. By discussing sensitive issues on an international platform and undermining India's unity. Well, here it is. Undermining India's unity. Who actually is undermining India's unity here? Is it Rahul Gandhi, who's calling out the RSS, who actually are undermining India's unity by marginalising all its minorities, by marginalising the Punjab, by marginalising Kashmir, Manipur, Kerala, all these other states who are now up in arms about the behaviour of the RSS BJP? Or is it Rahul Gandhi who's calling that out? I mean, it's a nonsense. But here you go. Here, textbook example of how the Indian media trots out this nonsense narrative. And of course, it's right across the media. Lots of examples of where this multilateral attack against Rahul Gandhi has been mobilised. Not just the renter mob, it's the media. Amit Shah has waded in. Yes, of course, Amit Shah. I'd be surprised if he didn't. He's always very vocal and a prime mouthpiece of the RSS. Making anti-national statements, Amit Shah accuses Rahul Gandhi over remarks. And yeah, of course, it's anti-Indian. According to Amit Shah. No, it's not. It's anti-BJP. And another one came. Another article was trotted out again on ANI. Yes, it's ANI yet again. Will file case, drag him to court. BJP slams Rahul Gandhi over his remarks, and the BJP has said they will drag Rahul Gandhi to court over his accusations. Well, let's see. It'll be interesting to see how what they charge him with. Maybe they'll brand him a terrorist. That'll be it. You watch. I wouldn't be surprised. That'll be the next thing. And CM Dami equates Rahul Gandhi's statement on Sikhs with separatist language. Oh, really? So in other words, anybody who dares criticise the BJP for marginalising everybody is actually a separatist. Oh, and therefore separatists must be branded as terrorists. One wonders. But again, that was uttered by Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami, a well-known BJP mouthpiece once again. So again, it's over and over again. It's this multilateral, multi-pronged attack on anybody who dares criticise the BJP or the RSS. And it's the renter mob are mobilised in massive amounts. It takes a brave person to stand up and criticise Narendra Modi and the BJP. Rahul Gandhi's done it. As I said, unfortunately, his legacy and his family legacy is not great, which gives them too much ammunition to tear him down. But Gurpatwant Singh Pannoon, amongst many others, have actually stood up and said, yeah, what he's saying is right. And we do know what Rahul Gandhi said is right, because that is what we report on a regular basis. So, James, yeah, if you want a textbook example of how the RSS desperately tries to keep hold of that narrative, here it is, writ large.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you touched on, Angus, you've got to give a great level of respect to Rahul Gandhi for having the courage and the ability to speak out like that. And I don't know what's going on with the Sikhs within the BJP party, but I just in our world, we say there's a saying called "keep your friends close and your enemies closer," so that you can change things from within. I don't know. Maybe that's the case, but it doesn't seem to be at this point.
Yeah, as I say, I'm quite fascinated by the dynamics going on here. These Sikhs who are very vocal and very active in the BJP, and somebody has actually stood up to represent what's going on and represent their own community. And yet here they are attacking them, basically being the guard dogs for the BJP. Why? Why is RP Singh and his colleagues actually acting as guard dogs for the RSS? What is going on? Surely they can't be that ignorant of what the RSS stands for. It baffles me. I do hope somebody or people in our audience can perhaps shed some light on that, because as I say, from my I would say relatively independent standpoint, I'm baffled by it. It's very curious. But anyway, let us move on to my second story, which is not unrelated. And this is the Shiromani Akali Dal President Simranjit Singh Mann has also been quite vocal recently. And again, about very much the same topic. It's a topic that has been bubbling furiously around Indian politics, of course, well, for decades, but actually more so recently, with the BJP really ramping up and tightening up its oppression of the minorities and rolling out this Hindu Rashtra agenda. Is that this whole topic is actually now reaching mainstream discussions. Now, the Shiromani Akali Dal, this president, and the Akali Dal, the Shiromani Akali Dal has been open to a lot of criticism recently about many things, but Simranjit Singh Mann has actually stood up and he's come out and said that the BJP-led government at the centre of systematically targeting Sikhs through a deliberate and well-planned policy, he again is echoing Rahul Gandhi's statement. Now, while talking to the media, he revealed that about 3 months ago, he discussed with Congress leader Sonia Gandhi in Parliament the alleged policy of the Modi government to target Sikhs for assassination. He was responding to a question about Congress leader Rahul Gandhi's remark in which Gandhi talked about religious freedom and cited the example of Sikhs during an event in the US. Now, this is interesting that Simranjit Singh Mann has actually met with Sonia Gandhi, part of the Congress party, and discussed these very same issues. Now, I'll just jump off on a slight aside here, because Rahul Gandhi's remarks, which have been echoed by many people, but one wonders why Rahul Gandhi has suddenly come out and made this statement, because it's quite, I would say, slightly uncharacteristic, but it's also extremely, it's pioneering actually, as one of these media reports said. It's pioneering because, yeah, he hasn't been so vocal in the past about this. So why has Rahul Gandhi suddenly come out and made these statements? Now, I had an interesting message overnight from one of my podcast guests. And this is Colonel Singh, and I do urge viewers to watch our podcast with Colonel Singh, who is a constitutional expert. And Colonel Singh messaged me to mention about the story that we ran yesterday about Rahul Gandhi's comments about turban and Gurdwara. And he said, "It sounds too similar to my own comments in my Punjabi interview on the Constitution of India. I gave this interview a few months ago with Surinder Singh. Is it a coincidence? Or is Rahul Gandhi watching Satluj TV?" Well, a very good question. And I did go back to Colonel Singh and I said, I suspect it probably is a coincidence. I don't know if Rahul Gandhi does watch our channel, but if you do, Rahul, welcome and thank you. I'd love to interview you. If you would be interested, let us know. Send us a message. But as I said, as I went back to Colonel Singh, I said it probably is coincidence. But this does coincide with this message, with this revelation that Simranjit Singh Mann has met with Sonia Gandhi around about the same time, actually about 3 months ago, and this meeting discussed many things. And Simranjit Singh Mann alleged that Avtar Singh Kandar was poisoned in the UK. Now, Avtar Singh Kandar, who we've regularly talked about, died under very suspicious circumstances in Birmingham Hospital, despite being in full health, just literally days earlier. He suddenly died in literally a matter of days. And the belief is it was part of transnational repression, because it only occurred a few days after the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. He also referred to Paramjit Singh Panjwar, who was killed in Pakistan, Jasbir Singh Rode, who was also murdered. He referred to Sidhu Musiwala, killed in the Punjab, and Deep Singh Sidhu, killed in Haryana, all very suspicious deaths. Now, he questioned Sonia Gandhi as to why she did not join the SAD, the Shiromani Akali Dal, the SAD, in raising these issues in Parliament. So he was pushing Congress. Why aren't you raising these issues in Parliament? Because you know about them. He said it is good that Rahul talked about Sikhs, saying that the community is disappointed. Yes, we are deeply disappointed. The elections for our Parliament, the SGPC, which was established by law in 1925, are not being conducted. Yes, indeed. It is written in law that the SGPC is supposed to have its own elections every year. It hasn't had elections, I think it's nearly 13 years now, which in itself is an outrage. Mann added that Rahul should raise the issue in the Indian Parliament. Yes, he absolutely should have the courage to say this in the Indian Parliament. I know what will happen. We'll get, again, the renter mob will be out. But Simranjit Singh Mann is saying that he should raise it in Parliament. He should question Modi directly as to why his government has allegedly adopted the policy of assassinating Sikhs outside India. Questioning how this alleged execution policy was made, Mann said the Security Committee and union ministers such as Amit Shah, Rajnath Singh, there he is again, S. Jaishankar, the security advisor, and the Raw Chief are responsible for drafting the assassination policy of Sikhs. Maintaining that Sikhs are ready to die, of course they are. The former Sangrur MP said, "We are asking Rahul to tell Modi that Sikhs are ready to die. They are prepared to martyr themselves for their causes, as indeed they have proven over centuries. If the government wants to kill us, we will come in front of your house, kill us there." Basically, he's saying, we dare you. You know, if you've got the courage, we have the courage to stand up and die to fight against your injustice. So this is a very typically robust and courageous statement on behalf of Sikhs. And he said on Tuesday he targeted both Congress and BJP for their treatment of the Sikhs I beg your pardon, this was Shiromani Akali Dal leader and Bathinda MP Harsimrat Kaur Badal said on X, in a blistering post, she wrote, "Rahul Gandhi, his Congress party as well as the BJP are equally guilty of committing inhuman crimes against Sikhs. Whilst it's true that Sikhs, their institutions and their holy shrines are now constantly under attack and facing brazen interference by the government and the ruling party at the centre, Rahul Gandhi's own party has its hands bedraggled with the blood of thousands of innocent Sikhs in massacres in Delhi, Kanpur, etc. in 1984. Now, again, this is the problem, you see. This is where Rahul Gandhi is deeply undermined by the legacy that, unfortunately, the baggage that he has to carry. And I think it's almost, from my perspective, it's a bit disappointing that the Bathinda MP has made an attack on Rahul Gandhi. It's like, hang on, hold back, because Rahul Gandhi is actually raising this issue on your behalf. It's probably not a good idea. It's certainly not the best timing to remind him of his dreadful legacy, because otherwise all you're doing is undermining somebody who's actually standing up for your own rights. So, again, that's my opinion. It may not be right, but I'm interested, again, my audience's opinion on this one. She said Rahul had not apologised for Operation Blue Star. Yeah, and maybe that's something that Rahul should do. He does not have a moral right to speak on discrimination against our brave and patriotic community. Well, yes, I think that's the right sentiment. But again, don't undermine somebody who's actually speaking up for you. But on the quiet, ask him to apologise, Operation Blue Star. The BJP too is guilty of discrimination against Sikhs. Yes, we know that, and are trying to usurp control of Sikh shrines. And BJP National General Secretary Tarun Chugh strongly condemned Rahul Gandhi's statements about India's culture, accusing him of tarnishing the country's image abroad. Well, yes, surprise, surprise. But unfortunately, it's not Rahul Gandhi who's tarnishing the country's image abroad. It's the BJP that's tarnishing India's reputation abroad by what they're doing. All Rahul Gandhi's doing is calling you out to make the world aware of what's actually going on in India, what the BJP is guilty of. So, James, it's a very complex plot that they weave here. We have Sikhs working on behalf of the BJP. We have Rahul Gandhi speaking up. Yeah, we have Rahul Gandhi speaking up for Sikhs, but unfortunately we've got Sikhs attacking him, saying, "Well, look at the baggage that you're carrying, the legacy of 1984." It's a tough one, isn't it?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of raw emotion still going back to 1984. So, of course, we're going to see some backlash there. But I think that what's even more important is that he is showing that there's a time for change, and that change is now. I think that he really wants to see a new India that's inclusive of everyone. And this is his way of trying to start the healing process. And yeah, I do agree that an apology would go a long way. But again, the sins of the father are not the sins of the son. So, he needs to reach out, acknowledge it, and if he's really working towards a new direction for India that's all inclusive, my hat's off to him, and I really respect that he has gone this route to speak out and to call upon the government to make change. So it's no easy task when it comes to speaking out about the India government.
Yeah, and I think it's very difficult for us to speak because, of course, we are not Sikhs, and we don't carry that dreadful legacy of suffering that they went through in the 1980s and 1990s. But almost as a more relatively impartial observer, I think that certainly from a political perspective, it would suit Rahul Gandhi to apologise, as you rightly said, James. Yeah, the sins of the father should not pass on to the son. And if Rahul Gandhi stood up and apologised for what happened. Now, the Gandhi legacy, of course, stands as a dreadful nemesis to the Sikh community for obviously what's happened since partition. It's not just Indira Gandhi, it's Mahatma Gandhi as well. But of course, if Rahul Gandhi stood up and wholeheartedly apologised, just imagine what that would do, firstly for his political standing, but secondly, the wounds that could begin to heal, because of course those wounds will never start healing, and India can never move on until somebody starts apologising and accounting for what happened in those dreadful decades. And Rahul Gandhi could start that in motion. Now, he's done a fantastic, creditable thing by standing up and calling out the BJP for what they're doing at the moment. He could take that further and start to win Sikhs more on side by apologising for the actions of Indira Gandhi and Mahatma Gandhi, etc. So, again, it's easy for us to say that, James. I don't know if it's appropriate, but certainly as a more impartial observer, that to me would be the political direction for Rahul Gandhi to take things. It would make a lot of sense, and it would win him a lot of friends, I'm sure.
Well, and I think it would go a long way with the Hindu youth as well, to see that they are moving towards a unity as opposed to continued division within their culture and their country.
Yeah, and of course the decent Hindus who are not responsible for the RSS and the dreadful agenda being rolled out by the BJP, but they've almost by default ended up voting for BJP because, well, they're Hindu, aren't they? Why, if Rahul Gandhi was a little bit more inclusive, because of course most decent Hindus are not for this division, this divisive politics of the BJP. They're looking for more unification. They're looking to get India back to a bit more of a unified, diverse nation. They want the communities to live a lot happier together, like they have done in the past. So again, politically speaking, it makes so much sense for Rahul Gandhi to try and firstly seduce Sikh voters across from the Sikh side, and of course Hindus from the BJP, by representing a bit more inclusivity, etc. So, but again, it's difficult for us to say. We're not experts, but so just as simple impartial observers from a political perspective. That's certainly how I see things. But no doubt our audience will have your own opinions. Do let us know your thoughts on that one. We're interested to know your thoughts. But James, let us move on to our comments column, because yes, we're beaten by time once again. And okay, a very interesting comment that came in the last couple of days from user BC something or other. And there's some fairly horrible subjects here. India put people in jails. Police break their bones. These are the people who actually have stood up in the Punjab against this dreadful drug problem. And big examples like Shahid Sandeep Singh Sidhu, Deep Sidhu, Shahid Mr. Sidhu Musawala, Shahid Bhai Mr. Kalra, who of course we talked about yesterday, Amrit Pal Singh, G, nicknamed Jutta, who resides unfortunately in jail. These are people who have stood up to this dreadful oppression from the RSS BJP, and look what's happened to them. They've either been killed or locked up in jail. So clearly something is going very wrong here. But Jaswant Singh Kalra, what this commenter says, he was doing his job by raising up voices for innocence. He did a fantastic job. And you refer to here, he found the records from funeral homes where police left their bodies to burn. Now, he found 25,000 bodies in just 3 cities alone. What about the whole of the Punjab? No one's counted until today. Of course, the Indian government are hiding this. Of course they are. It's embarrassing. Suddenly witnesses are getting killed, thanks to you both. And Jaspal Chatterful followed up with saying, yeah, the 25,000 was only in 3 districts. There were 13 districts in Punjab. The number is more likely to be over 100,000. James, one wonders. I mean, we'll never know the truth, but thank heavens for people like Jaswant Singh Kalra, and many other. Jaggi, another case in point, who's now residing in jail for doing the same thing. These are the wonderful people who have dedicated their lives to trying to document and dig up the evidence of the guilty. And just how many people died in these dreadful times, this 11 plus years and throughout the 80s and 90s, when the Indian government murdered in cold blood possibly hundreds of thousands of young Sikh men. It's frightening, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think that's one reason why Mr. Gandhi there spoke from outside of the borders of India, is because this way the international community will be watching if he gets locked up and imprisoned as a result of speaking out against the BJP and the current government.
Yeah, there's an interesting turn of direction. I don't think it'll, mind you, actually, he has served time in prison. I was going to say, interesting if he gets locked up when he returns to India. I don't think he will. But yeah, again, typical Modi tactic, BJP tactic. They've thrown charges at him left, right and centre, as they tend to do against their political opponents. We know that. So yeah, interesting. So Jura Rai. Oh, hello, gentlemen. Well, hello to you. With Khalistan, 50% problems will be over with Khalistan. And I think what you're trying to mean here, would Khalistan be a strong member of the United Nations? Well, I have absolutely no doubt it will be. And Cruella follows up by saying, oh, sorry, this is a separate comment, I beg your pardon. So, yeah, back to the United Nations concept. As we've said, we have absolutely no doubt that the way Khalistan will be governed will be a model of democracy. In fact, it will be a unique democracy in the way that the Sikh community run their own affairs, and of course free of interference from Indian central government. It would be a model, and again modelled on the original empire of the 19th century. And I have absolutely no doubt that it would be welcomed into the United Nations, and I suspect many nations would hold up Khalistan as a textbook example of how to run a country. And it would be held up as a textbook example to many banana republics around the world. And I rather tongue-in-cheek refer to India regularly as a banana republic, but it will actually set up as a great example, as a contrast to its neighbour India and how India has been run. So yes, thank you for that comment, James. I think Khalistan would be welcomed by the United Nations without doubt.
I think so, and I can't wait for us to go and have dinner in Khalistan one day, Angus.
Well, as we've said, James, the day of Khalistan's establishment, you and I will be there, God willing, presenting our show live to a live audience of Khalistan citizens. And hey, maybe we might even be granted Khalistan citizenship. What a boon that would be. That would be a proud day for us.
As long as they've got good coffee, that's all it takes for me to go.
Well, it is a beautiful country, so who knows? Now, Cruella added, all of us in the US need to take up Jaggy's case. Absolutely you do. Ask America to kick UK out of its protection. Well, yeah, and again, we often tongue-in-cheek say that the UK is the US's poodle. It's its lapdog. The UK does as it's told by the US, which is not necessarily true, but actually is true in many cases, much to our own shame, I have to say. And you're right. I think if the US took up Jaggy's case, I think it would embarrass and shame the British establishment into actually taking action. Unfortunately, it is not for the US to do that because Jaggy is a UK citizen. But yes, can you imagine if the US government did publicly state, why is India locking up Jaggy, and start pressuring India about it? You imagine the embarrassment and the shame and the well-deserved embarrassment and shame for the British government. So a good point. And the only way that's going to happen is for people like you out in the US is to lobby your local members of Congress and the Senate and say, are you aware that there's a British citizen? Are you aware, of course, of what's going on? But don't forget, Jaggy, a British citizen, is residing in jail for nearly 7 years. So, yeah, it would be fantastic if the US joined in the clamour and the UK was isolated in its silence, its shameful silence over the case of Jaggy. So, good point, well made.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be the first time the US government has helped another nation. They did that when we had several Canadians in custody in China. So the U.S. government has a history of stepping in to help with negotiating releases. So it definitely could be an option.
Good call. Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, as a middleman in the whole process. Yeah. But I think, yeah, I'm a little bit more militant about it in the sense that I would like the US to stand up loudly and belligerently just to purely shame the British government, of whom I personally am deeply ashamed of for their lack of action over it. It's just unforgivable. But anyway, Gurpreet says, oh yes, now we're back to this discussion, James, about Sikhs or Sikhs. There is no definitive answer. I think we can summarise. Everybody has an opinion on it. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer on it, but there is certainly many interpretations. Gurpreet comes up with one. In my opinion, in Punjabi, we always say we are, well, something is written down, so I don't know, is it Sikh or Sikh? I think it's Sikh. But when it comes to English, the term changes to Sikh due to the accent and the pronunciation of the language. So many say Sikh, some say Sikh, even our Punjabi names also change accordingly. And many people have a hard time pronouncing my name. Well, I hope we've pronounced it correctly, Gurpreet. Thanks for bringing up this news. It is a pleasure. And yeah, I think this point is absolutely bang on. I think a lot of it is purely down to your national pronunciation and just the natural linguistics of how the term would come out, James. I think that's probably a very good point.
Yeah, and I just think that it was a step too far to state that it is supporting white supremacy or insinuating that you're a white supremacist if you are mispronouncing it. It's not out of ignorance. And believe me, if there are white supremacists out there, it wouldn't be Sikh or Sikh. It would be much worse that they're saying. So,
Exactly, and we'll come on to that very point in a moment, because that's followed up lower down. But what Kuldip Jamas says Punjab is pronounced as Sikh, British pronounced as Sikh, absolutely. And Kuljit follows that with, I think the pronunciation can only be individuals as mother language. Again, back to the same point. Well, it depends what your mother language is. Everybody's going to pronounce it differently. Yeah. And Let Me Check says Sikh, Sikhi are the real words, but I love if we start with seekers. That's the word I will use to my faith. I think that's a beautiful poetic way. So let's just call ourselves seekers, seekers of the truth. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. That's a great compromise. Thank you for that. And then 1S1NT. Yeah, and I think this final comment of this section says, I think actually summarises it for me. Actual Sikhs or Sikhs that follow the hukam of Guru Sahibs do not waste time on such irrelevant issues. The focus is on learning Gurbani and sharing knowledge. This kind of flapping around the edges of Sikhi isn't helpful to anyone. The video tries to exploit the current hatred being driven by India to alienate Sikhs or Sikhs. I'm grateful that you can see the real agenda. I think this comment, James, really wraps it up. If you're talking about silly nonsense about white supremacy, there are more important things to be discussing about how you actually pronounce Sikh or Sikhs. There is no malicious agenda. There's no other agenda there other than an RSS-driven agenda to try and divide the community about something as silly as how you pronounce the very word Sikh or Sikhs. So, James, I think this comment is bang on. Let's focus more on what Sikh is all about, not on this silly nonsense.
This video has absolutely no place in the British Columbia school system curriculum, so...
Yeah, so thank you 1S1NT for that comment. I think you summarise and end that debate quite conclusively, beautifully so. Right, and then finally, James, we had lots of input from everybody, from our wonderful audience about where you all are. RNIJ in Delta, British Columbia, Manitoba, Calgary again, Winnipeg, Toronto. So, James, a great turnout from Canada, unsurprisingly so.
Absolutely, and one day we'll do a tour across Canada and actually visit communities and get you on air and talk about the issues.
Indeed, and over in the US, Cruella is in the US, Mandeep Bajwabatala is in Bay Area, again in California, and Kuljit Mangat also from the US. Now, I'm really pleased to see we've got a couple from Australia, from down under, Minder Singh and Gurjit Tindijes. Both, good day to you both. I don't know, I'm trying to think what time it is in Australia this time, but welcome. It's wonderful to see people from the diaspora in Australia watching. We don't report enough on Australian issues, do we, James? Maybe we should dig more about Australian issues.
Certainly.
And pleased to see Immortal Cyanogen from Denmark. We have, at the moment, a lone viewer from Denmark. Welcome to you from Denmark. Thank you for watching from Denmark. I wonder if, excuse me, I wonder if we have others from the European continent. If you're on the European continent, send us a message. We'd love to know where else you're watching from. It's fascinating to see this. And of course, I'm very pleased to see we have Amric in the UK, KSG in Scotland, one of my favourite places, Scotland. I wonder which part. I know there's a good community in Glasgow. Maybe it's Glasgow? Who knows? And Jaspal Chatterfall says, hello, James and Angus, watching from the UK. The final comment, I agree with James. It is mispronunciation. She may not be aware of white supremacy. Yeah, we're back to the Sikh argument. And the final comment is, Angus, I agree with you. All these Labour politicians are liars, James. I couldn't summarise everything that we talk about better than that final statement. All Labour politicians, no, all politicians are liars.
I totally agree there. I was going to say, let's not pigeonhole the Labour Party as the only liars as politicians.
Indeed. And on that wonderful truism, we must end the show, as we are well over time as always. But of course, that was Perspectives. Please don't forget to keep those comments coming in. Let us know where you are from if you haven't commented already. Again, it's fascinating to see where you're all watching from. It's great for us. But it also does help us to direct our own research and news stories to make sure that we make them relevant to which part of the world and which part of the diaspora you're watching from. Don't forget, you can, of course, message us directly at message@satellitetv.com about anything that you don't want to put in the public domain, but you want to bring to our attention, as many of you have done. Thank you very much for all your emails. They are appreciated. But in the meantime, we must wrap things up. Thank you for watching Perspectives. It is a goodbye from me, and it is a goodbye from James.
Goodbye, everybody. Stay safe.
You've been watching Perspectives. We will see you next time.